Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Shannon Scott. Canada has made significant changes to its Jordan's Principle program that funds services for Indigenous children. The government says the changes are meant to address a massive backlog and also concerns over misuse of the program. But one Indigenous rights advocate says the changes will create serious barriers. The CBC's Nadir Hashmi has our top story tonight.
Jordan's Principle was created in 2016 to ensure First Nation children get funding for services they need when they need it. Canada says changes to the program are intended to ensure funding requests align with the spirit of the program and to address a 367% increase in demand since 2021. The change comes after the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal recently said it was concerned about funds being misused. The tribunal heard from the federal government that money was given for non-urgent things like modeling headshots or gaming consoles. Minister of Indigenous Services Patty Haiju said in a statement, "It is supposed to be used when necessary. It shouldn't be used for requests that are outside what it is designed for." CBC News reached out to the minister, but she was unavailable for an interview. An Indigenous advocate says if the government gets such requests, they can simply deny them.
Well, then they would have approved some of this misuse. So that requires some system changes on their end. But you can't paint a whole system based on the broad brush that everybody's on the take.
Blackstock says some of the changes will create serious barriers. One key change, she says, is that First Nation families must now prove they have exhausted all other services in their area before requesting support through Jordan Principle. Blackstock argues that one of the program's strengths has been its ability to respond to urgent needs, and these new restrictions will be regressive.
For families in the north, there often are no other services. But imagine yourself as a parent in that moment of panic for your child, having to think, well, what other services do we have, and how do you prove that to the federal government?
Blackstock also takes issue with how the government is framing the changes.
This whole narrative by the federal government saying that the First Nations families, they're somehow misusing Jordan's Principle when they have no data to show that.
Blackstock believes the new rules will worsen the existing backlog of over 140,000 requests. Dene National Chief George McKenzie told CBC News that he's profoundly concerned for the vulnerable First Nations children in Dene and across Canada. In an email response, he said the decision poses significant challenges for families who are already navigating systemic barriers. Brenda Tissali-Piero is the Women's Safe Home Coordinator in Fort Good Hope. She says the changes will be detrimental for many children in the community.
I think it's unfair that the one we depend on for our children's school needs is Jordan's Principle, and that's getting cut too.
Tissali-Piero says she used the program 2 years ago for her own children while being unemployed. She says the government should consult families who rely on it before putting restrictions. Nadir Hashmi, CBC News, Yellowknife.
A trial is being held in Yellowknife this week in the case of a fatal vehicle accident. The accused faces a charge of dangerous driving causing death. Jocelyn Chappelle has more.
30-year-old Jermaine Mantla was struck by a vehicle at the Bison Hill apartment parking lot in April 2022. Yesterday, the court heard from witnesses that saw or heard the incident take place. However, 2 witnesses were not present despite court orders. Arrest warrants were put out for both Aikita Lafferty and Austin Moore. Those 2 are said to have been involved in the altercation. Hannah Lafferty is facing 1 count of dangerous driving causing death. Karen Murray was one of the witnesses who testified yesterday. Murray says she saw the vehicle suddenly travel at an alarming speed with the driver's door open. After the man was hit, Murray says the driver, Lafferty, got out of the truck. She says she spoke with her and noticed Lafferty's face was bruised and swollen. Murray added that she heard that Lafferty was in a fight right before driving forward. The court heard that after hitting the man, Lafferty called 911 and described a vehicle incident and an assault that had happened. It's still unclear if Mantla knew any of the people involved in the incident. Mantla was seriously injured from being hit and died afterwards. Jocelyn Chappelle, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Contaminated water is still leaking from a containment pond at Yukon's Eagle Gold Mine. It's been seeping from the site since December. And according to the government, millions of liters of water have leached out. The territory provided its first in-person update in several months earlier today. Jillian Green was there.
19 million liters of water contaminated with cyanide. That's the scale of the leak. What's more, it's starting to be detected in nearby Haggard Creek, compounding impacts that have played out for months.
The data is showing us a cumulative effect from the containment pond leak and the ongoing contamination that continues to enter Haggard Creek from the heap leach failure. In cases where contaminants exceeded their aquatic life guidelines, there could be negative effects to the health of fish and other organisms.
Officials say the receiver has been looking into the nature of the leak for a while, but really getting to the source of it will require emptying out the pond.
There's not a specific timeline for accessing the pond itself, so the interception work is happening right now. Wells are being drilled, and what will have to happen is the pond will have to be drained and the ice will have to be removed.
Asked whether the pond will be repaired before spring, Dowd didn't answer. Instead, she said that's a priority. Julian Green, CBC News, Whitehorse.
For decades now, the government of the Northwest Territories has been trying to build the Mackenzie Valley Highway. It's been talked about since the 1970s. And with the ongoing low water levels causing canceled barges and climate change making winter roads unpredictable, the urgency to get it built is mounting. A proposal to extend the highway from Wrigley to Norman Wells is undergoing an environmental assessment. But one chief says the current route is misguided. Avery Zingle has more.
Petsakee First Nation Chief Jamie Moses says the Northwest Territories government's proposed route for an all-weather Mackenzie Valley Highway is sidelining concerns about landslides and potential impacts to moose habitat.
They've been proposing this highway for quite some time, and they've selected a route that follows the old winter road. Our community has been opposed to this route there for quite some time because it cuts right through a lot of our archaeological sites.
In a January 30th letter, Moses urged the Northwest Territories government and the Mackenzie Valley Review Board to consider a higher altitude route that would hug the mountains and follow the current Enbridge pipeline route. The Infrastructure Department wrote in an email, the route is proposed along the current winter road to minimize the overall impact of the project. Highway 1 starts at the Northwest Territories border with Alberta and runs 700 kilometers to Wrigley. Now connecting that highway to the Sahtu and Mackenzie Delta has been in the works for decades. In 2013, the government narrowed its proposal down to a 321-kilometer, two-lane gravel highway to Norman Wells. They say it will make transportation networks more resilient to climate change. In 2019, a heat wave disrupted the winter road season, and low water last year prompted the cancellation of summer resupply barges. The Infrastructure Department says many of the bridge crossings, except for the Great Bear River crossing at Tulita, have all been built. Moses said Enbridge has agreed to share geotechnical data for an alternative route along the pipeline. He says bridges installed along the winter road alignment are noisy and that they will expose their hunting grounds to year-round access. He said the route is even too close to the Decho, risking spills directly into the water.
They're really sticking to their guns. They don't want to deviate from this route. And like I said, when it comes to the bridges, all the permits state that it's just to extend the winter road life. It's not to turn it into an all-season road.
Former Pitsakee Chief Tim Lenny said it will be costly to ignore the community's warnings that the proposed route is not stable.
You're talking with people that live in this area. The sounding message over all these years is just very risky and probably a lot of cost in regards to repairs when the landslide starts.
The Infrastructure Department said the route is not yet finalized. It still will spend several winters on geotechnical assessments of the proposed alignment and make adjustments to the route. Avery Zingle, CBC News, Yellowknife.
We have a correction now to a story that we aired last night. We reported on federal funding cuts to residential school site searches. In addition to the National Advisory Committee losing its funding agreement, we said funding for communities was also capped at $500,000 each. In fact, the federal government reversed that decision 1 month after making it. Well, coming up after the break, NWT Premier R.J. Simpson joins us to talk about his recent trip to Washington, D.C., and what he thinks the territories can do to counter incoming tariffs from the United States. Stay with us.
Forced and coerced sterilization of Indigenous people is still happening. The Survivors Circle for Reproductive Justice has supports available for Indigenous survivors. Join the National Registry and access up to $70,000 in healing support funds for individuals, families, and communities. The deadline to apply is March 31st. If you or someone you know has experienced forced and coerced sterilization, please call 1-877-386-0750 or visit reproductivejusticesurvivors.ca for more information.
The Kanuipita National Inuit Health Survey team is going to every community in Nunavut, speaking to Inuit about their health and wellness. And every answer will help us as Inuit determine our own priorities for a healthier future. Together, we will answer the question, Kanuipita, how are we? Find out when we're coming to your community. Learn more at qnihs.ca.
Oh, he grew up around here. Oh, isn't this nice?
Oh, who made this?
Studio in Montreal.
And this?
It's a collectible.
You're disgusting.
Why don't throw in first base at the sun? Put my soul between the bone. Now I'm running, now I'm drunk. Now I'm running like a flaming pig. Escaping off the attitude. Old man eating all my food. Don't be kind, don't be rude. Just shake your boots and let it all get loose.
All of Canada's premiers were in Washington, D.C. last week, including NWT Premier R.J. Simpson. During the visit to the U.S. Capitol, the premiers took part in various high-level discussions with American officials and leaders from other Arctic nations. Premier R.J. Simpson joins us via Zoom from Hay River today. Mr. Premier, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time to be here with us.
Well, thanks for having me.
I'm curious, let's kind of start at the beginning of these meetings. Who did you and your counterparts from the other provinces and territories meet with while you were in Washington?
We had a number of meetings. The 13 premiers together on the Wednesday met with a number of different people. And then on Thursday, the 3 northern premiers met with a number of people. So as the large group, we went with Congress people, senators, business leaders. And as the northern premiers, we had similar meetings with senators and Congress people, but also with representatives from Denmark and Greenland.
And was there kind of an overarching theme or message that came out of those meetings for you?
Well, the message that was coming from the premiers was that, we have such an integrated economy with the United States that any sort of tariffs are going to hurt both sides. It's not just going to be Canada feeling the pain. And I think that was well received. And I think most people really understood that. And I found that we have a lot of allies down in Washington. In the end, it only matters what the president thinks. But we really wanted to get into the ears of the people who have the president's ear and can influence the president. And so what we heard at the White House, what we heard was really a reiteration of what President Trump has said publicly about Canada and about the North, and from other representatives, whether they're Democrat or Republican, that would really guide what we heard from them.
What role do you think the northern premiers and the 3 northern territories can play as Canada kind of faces these threats from Donald Trump and the United States?
Well, the North, Arctic sovereignty, Arctic security are big issues. And the people of the North are the ones asserting the sovereignty in the North. We don't have extensive military bases across the Arctic. And so it's really the inhabitants who are the reason that we can assert Canada's sovereignty. Really what we need to do going forward is come together as the Northern Territories and ensure that investments that are being made in the North, in military investments, are for the benefit of the people of the North as well. And that any investments made are done in collaboration with Northerners. And so I know that, for example, even in land claims, there are provisions related to military use of land. And so ensuring that Canada is really working with the territories, the people of the North, and the Indigenous governments when they want to make those investments.
Is there something specific that you and the three Northern premiers are doing together to be sure that Northern interests aren't lost in these discussions?
Yeah, we work together quite a bit. So every time all of the premiers get together, we also have additional meetings, often a full day, in addition to the meetings that the Northern premiers have throughout the year. So we're very much aligned on our messaging. Each jurisdiction, Nunavut, the Yukon, and the Northwest Territories, we all have our own desires and things we're looking for, different infrastructure projects, different circumstances, but we're all very much aware of each other's circumstances and what we have to offer Canada. And we have some consistent messaging about what we have to offer Canada and how we can work with the country. There's so much potential in the North, especially in terms of things like critical minerals, which are really needed for everything these days. Every, cell phone, TV, medical devices, defense technology. And we have a lot of those materials in the North. And it's letting people know that for one thing, but also letting them know that we are open for business. But if you're coming to the North, we have to work with the people of the North and the Indigenous governments.
We've been hearing a lot about critical minerals over the last couple of days. They certainly have come up many times in these discussions. How can the North's supply, I guess for lack of a better word, of critical minerals be used as leverage in these conversations?
Well, we have critical minerals that in some instances, if you're not getting them from Northern Canada, you're getting them from places like China. And so there are things that China has put export restrictions on, and those are critical minerals that we have in the North. And so, this is, now that Canada is waking up to this, the importance of critical minerals and seeing what we have in the North, the eyes are on us. And so we are letting people know what we have, letting people know that we do have regulatory regimes up here and that we're willing to work with companies. We want to work with companies, but what we always do is we balance the economic aspects with the environmental aspects. We need to ensure that people can continue to use the land for time immemorial, for harvesting. And there are some areas where there won't be any development ever, and there shouldn't be. But we have a large swath of Canada where there are opportunities for development. And so getting that message out there that, come to the North, work with us. It can be for the benefit of the territories, but also for all of Canada. We can be that first link in a secure supply chain.
As a group, I'm going to go back to the group of premiers in Washington here for a second. As a group, the premiers hired a lobbying firm to help arrange the meetings that you had in Washington. Do you think that was effective?
Well, we got a meeting in the White House, and I don't think that that meeting would have occurred without that. So, that trip was organized by the Council of the Federation, the Secretariat, I believe, and so I'm not familiar with how things came together, other than what I've seen in the news. But we got into the White House. I mean, I don't think that would have been possible without that group.
Given that, do you think that using things like lobbying groups is something that the NWT could use going forward when looking to expand relationships with the United States or other countries?
Well, I'm not sure about that. We do need intel in places like Ottawa, and so there's opportunities to access different organizations there. But I'm not looking at hiring a lobbyist for to get into the United States and to make trips to Washington. I think that we have our interests. My primary concern is the Northwest Territories, and I went down to Washington to support all of Canada as a member of the 13 premiers, but I'm not going to be making frequent trips down there.
The Yukon Premier Ranch Pillay released a statement today about the meetings, saying they were one of the goals was to help foster stronger economic ties throughout the North American Arctic. To your mind, what could that look like?
Well, the North, there's a lot of opportunity in the North, and there's opportunities for Northerners to really drive our own economies. We don't always need Southern companies to come up and do it for us. And so, for example, in the Northwest Territories, like I said, we have generations of mining experience in the North. And so, and construction experience, constructing in our climate. And so that type of expertise can be used across the Arctic, across the North. We don't need to bring people up for that. So there's opportunities like that when it comes to the economy, where we can actually build the companies that know how to do the work in the Arctic and do the work in the Arctic, whether it be Alaska, Canada, or Greenland.
All right, Premier Simpson, we're going to have to leave that there, but I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you very much.
There's a new country food exhibit in Iqaluit right now. It focuses on documenting Inuit cuisine and creating a recipe archive so they can be passed on to future generations. The CBC's Maknoor Mubarak has more.
Photos have been placed at the Kayuktavik Community Food Center. They show a variety of country foods being prepared. It's part of a project called Inuktitut, Food Sovereignty in Nunavut. The project involves youth from Pond Inlet and Kingate who take photos and videos of elders preparing country food. They use them to create an online database on YouTube. The work will help to develop a country food knowledge digital archive based in the communities. It's being led by Inuit elders, community researchers, and academics advocating for Inuit food sovereignty. Rhoda Kutsuk is a co-investigator in the project and was filmed preparing country food.
We're trying to ensure that we are continually using Inuit food, country food. It's a healthy thing. It's about food sovereignty, being able to access your own food.
Dana Kutsuk is one of the young people who took part in the program. Photos from a video she shot are now on the walls at the exhibit. Dana filmed her grandfather cutting up a bearded seal and braiding its intestines, calling it an exciting experience.
I like to know a lot about our traditions, especially from my grandpa who fully lived the experience of being a full Inuit and the full traditions of it and the full culture.
The exhibit will be up at the Food Center until September. Maknoor Mubarak, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Well, Nunavut now has a new girls hockey association. It's meant to help encourage girls in the territory to get into the sport. With that story, here again is Maknoor Mubarak.
The association is called Nunavut Fury. Its goal is to help girls work on their hockey skills. Maxwell Joy is the association's director of programs and head coach for the 2026 Arctic Winter Games girls hockey team. He says that girls face barriers when it comes to playing hockey in the territory, such as having less ice time and fewer developmental opportunities. Joy adds that there's still some stigma around girls in the sport. He says that Nunavut Fury is looking to change that.
Nunavut Fury is about making sure every girl who wants to play hockey in the territory knows that they belong, that they have a place in the game, and that they don't have to fight for ice time or prove that they're worth investing in.
The Fury's first camp took place in Rankin Inlet last week, where around 70 girls from across the territory took part. Ava Lynn Noah is a 15-year-old hockey player based in Iqaluit who went to the camp. It was focused on skill development, team building, goal setting, and female empowerment sessions. She says girls should be involved in the sport.
It's super important because it's a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of new people, and it just feels really good to be playing hockey.
The developmental camp was held at the same time as Hockey Nunavut's 2026 Arctic Winter Games selection tournament. Most girls involved in the camp also participated in that competition. Joseph Ikatak Jr., the mayor of Akvet, was there as well. He stressed the importance of letting kids have fun.
Even though your child is not selected for the next event, as long as the child is happy, hockey is a fun sport for everyone. Some parents are way too serious and get very upset. We should let the kids and youth just enjoy the sports. They have already achieved their goal.
And having fun while developing hockey girls in the sport is the goal of Nunavut Fury. The association hopes to hold more camps in the future. Maknoor Mubarak, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Biathlon Yukon is getting a makeover. The federal and territorial governments are investing nearly $3 million to replace its outdated facilities. Biathlon Yukon is a volunteer-driven organization with an outdoor space in Whitehorse. Officials say the upgrade is needed because there's a growing interest in biathlon and the facilities need updating. The new building should also play a part in the upcoming 2026 Arctic Winter Games.
This is a huge, huge improvement. And yeah, 40-year-old buildings just starting to get beyond their lifetime use. Hopefully we'll get going soon. But it'll be tight, and the building may not actually be fully completed by the time, but it'll be certainly usable by then.
The new facilities will also boast improved access for users, upgraded water and heating systems, and better parking. Construction is set to begin once the snow is gone. Now, while Biathlon Yukon is looking well ahead to 2026 and those new facilities, cross-country skiers are focused on something more immediate. The Bill Gardner Masters National Championship starts tomorrow. More than 80 cross-country skiers aged 30 and up will be at the Whitehorse Nordic Center for the event. The race's director says athletes have been eager to come north, and there will be competitors who are into their 80s, including at least one former Olympian.
A lot of skiers across the country really want to visit the Yukon in the wintertime because they've heard about it. The last time we held a major invitational event was in 2016 when we hosted the Canadian National Championships, and people are still talking about that event. It was a great event.
The action gets underway tomorrow and wraps up on Sunday. Now let's take a look at the weather forecast for tomorrow. -4 and some light snow in Whitehorse tomorrow. Seems like it could be good conditions for the beginning of that skiing championship. Thanks so much for joining us here on Northbeat tonight. That's our show for today. For news anytime, you can always visit our website, cbc.ca/north. I'm Shannon Scott. I'll see you again tomorrow night.
Earth is our collective home that makes us all family. As family, we strive to love and protect each other. Diversity of species is our strength. We are all connected. We survive and thrive together. We celebrate many things this season and make many choices. Taking care of our family should be the easiest. We're in this together.
One good scheme deserves another. Stay on him.
I feel we may be in for a challenging few days.
Cheers. Cheers.
Being there means being here. The city is now very still. To share.
I'm so sorry. I do worry about them.
Adrian Arsenault reports on CBC News. Stream free.
Stream anytime. CBC News.
We invite you to play What's My Line?
Welcome, Mrs. Baker. Those folks over there need to guess your extraordinary occupation.
Are you an entertainer, Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Do people come to watch you, perform?
Yes.
Do you travel for work?
Yes, I do.
Do you ever wear a special type of costume?
Yes.
Is your job, physical?
Yes, indeed.
Are you a member of a team?
Yes.
Are you a professional baseball player?
Yes, I am.
Created during the Second World War, the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League included 68 Canadians. One of its brightest stars was my mother, Saskatchewan's Mary Bonnie Baker, a pioneer for women in sports.